that that's how that works. And so in the spirit of ritual, Nate, I will start with an intro question. And what I found, so I was working on how best to phrase this, and I came across this great phrase called intellectual humility. So what I've been looking for is how we can talk about the ability or the willingness to say, I don't know, in a professional setting. So for myself, as a university professor, I went through a teacher training program. And in the very beginning, this is one of the first things that we learned. And it was very scary. The idea that you would get up in front of a classroom and at some point, at many points, someone is going to ask you something that you don't really know the answer to. And you're supposed to be the authority. So how do you do that? And I think we might feel inclined to come up with an answer that might suit how we imagine the person, something they would want to hear. But in fact, there's a big importance in being able to say, I don't know about something, and sort of thinking about our intellectual humility. So I kind of just wanted to pass that around a little bit to talk about why and how that might be important, or how may have encountered that. Because in particular, for me now, this transition into the crypto space, this is a very fast-moving, changing, growing, developing environment. And I think we all might encounter this, where you may not know, and how do you sort of deal with that? Maybe that's a good way to put it. So the questions I wrote on the agenda were just why and how is that important, and why and how that, excuse me, might be difficult. And I had kind of a third part, which was how we might view this as a weakness or as a strength, and just sort of your reflections on that. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and pass it off to, how about Wonka?
Thanks, Katie. I think it's very important to be humble with the knowledge, because like no one knows everything, and sometimes when we are too much like sure about our ideas and we don't want to hear others, we are like falling into our own biases. So it's very important to like be humble and recognize when you don't know things. And also I think that is something that relates to authenticity, and that is something that I have been reading a lot lately about the authenticity in organizations. And it's important to promote like an honest image of ourselves, and not like this false concept of like, hey, I know everything, I am perfect. And like fosters and promotes and reproduces like a false image of a human being. And we all have like good things, bad things, like we all have strengths and weaknesses. So it's important to recognize them. So yeah, like it's good to be humble on knowledge, and it's good to be authentic and to recognize that our own limitations. I will pass to Septimus.
Yeah, this is a hard question. I don't really have much to add besides what Juan says, like the authenticity of being humble. I'm sorry I cannot provide more good insights, but I'll pass it to Griff.
Who did you pass to, Zepti? Nate?
I say Griff.
Griff.
Maybe Edu?
Hello, what was the question again, Juga? Sorry.
So the question is about how you feel or how you imagine the idea of intellectual humility and the importance of being able to say, I don't know, in a professional setting. Why it might be difficult or why it might be important.
I think all levels of vulnerability are hard for people, and that includes accepting in a professional space that you are not on the capacity to answer something or knowing something. So I think providing safe space for this kind of humble answers are needed, and making sure that people can answer that, because most of the times we are being judged by not knowing something or by asking too much. And just in a personal point of view, I remember my first talk with Griff in November. I told him I asked too many questions, I'm sorry, and he's like, oh no, fire them away. And that for me was the goal for a safe space in the DC, and I think that's very important in most of the spaces. And I will pass it out to Tam.
Can I just stop for a second? So actually, what about in the other direction, when you are the one and someone is asking you the questions? Do you see what I mean? You're in the role of the authority,
Right.
but you don't know the answer.
I think that for me, it's usually tricky depending on who is asking. If my mom is asking, I will be like, oh, I know it, even though I don't know. But if someone I respect or someone that I work with is asking me, I immediately am honest, because it will be more effective for the work that we are doing together. But if my partner is asking me and I'm angry at him, I will not answer with the truth. So yeah, it depends on the context. Now again, back to Tam.
Thanks for that. Yeah, where do I start with this? There's so many things I don't know. And sometimes when somebody asks me a question and I know it, then I'm not sure I know it anymore. So I feel like I come across that a lot. And like, do I know it? Am I sure? How sure am I? I feel like people's reputation, so information is so valuable. Information, I think it has like a monetary value attached to it. And the more accurate information you can provide, the better your credibility, the better your reputation, the more value you actually have. You know, it's like if you see someone that, if you are interacting with someone that's always correct, and if they're not correct, they say, I don't know, or, you know. Early in my career, someone once told me there's two right answers, the right answer and let me get back to you. And I've always sort of hung on to that, which is like, if I'm not giving the right answer, then my answer is let me get back to you, and then get back to that person with the right answer. And I feel like that's sort of like the guide, which is like that I'm trying to follow. And I feel like, you know, when I'm interacting with someone and I know that they always have, like, I don't have to double check what they said. I don't have to, you know, I just know that they're always going to give me the truth as they know it. It's so easy to work with that person. And I'm talking about work professionally, but also in your family. You know, I have some people in my family that, yeah, they don't always really say the truth. Like, you always have to be like, oh, that's great. And then you have to double check. And I feel like it's such a waste of time a lot, or you just have to, that doesn't become a source of information for you. You know, it's like Fox News or something. So I feel like there's like, I really, really, really appreciate, admire, and value people who give accurate information. So I also really try to be that person too. And I think it adds to people's credibility. And I feel like I probably say I don't know a lot. Maybe I probably say it more than I have to, actually, because there's so much stuff I don't know. And then I guess also, you know, as a parent, like, your kids ask you these crazy things and you have to constantly be like, let's check Google. Like, who knows what the answer to that is. So there's also like, I feel like you're used to saying you don't know a lot more when you have kids in school. And I'll pass to Mateo.
Hey everyone, how are you all? For me, I feel like you, Tam, is almost like the same, because sometimes I feel I know some stuff, but when I get asked, I start doubting myself, and I end up being like, well, okay, I know this, but there is so much that I'm missing to know, to actually know. So I appreciate always accurate information, as you say, but also good critical thinking in a discussion. So uh, I like when people accept that there is not a full truth, that there should be a discussion to be open, and maybe continue to discuss, because I don't believe there is an absolute truth, and that's like part of knowledge. So yeah, I feel like that. I'll pass it to who's missing, Nate.
Diggs potato. Yeah, honestly, I have a hard time with this, this type of like intellectual humility in terms of just saying, you know, I don't know. Half of the time it's because of my perception of myself, and then my fear of perception of others because of by others. Because if I'm being perceived as having authority on a subject, I almost never feel that way about myself. You know, I feel like I'm the one who is not the one who knows what's going on, which puts a huge responsibility, because it does carry a lot of charismatic authority when you do, you know, present yourself as knowing something. And so I don't know. I just try to share my thoughts and my opinions on things, and not necessarily dealing in facts all the time. And that's a really difficult thing for me to handle. I think it's especially being in this space where there are very few who I would call experts. And so just going, you know, I hope somebody doesn't perceive me as an expert. And I don't often think of that as a possibility, but it's something to be aware of. And yeah, I just think it's really interesting. But learning how to say I don't know or I'll get back to you is a very important skill to have. And to be aware of it and using that in the right context and the right time is really important. So, but great question. Thank you, Sugar. I will pass it to Griff.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I don't know. I feel like I'm really lucky because I'm constantly surrounded by such humble people, like Mateo and Tam and Nate, and you know, you guys are maybe it's because I want to be more like you and like want to be able to say I don't know more often. I think I do okay, but I could definitely do better. There's lots of times where it's like, you know, easier to coordinate sometimes when I think I know what people did or where the state of that is, you know, because I was like, I think that they probably did that by now, but maybe they didn't, you know, and then it's like, oh shit. So like sometimes just mostly around the coordination stuff. I do have this expert role as a DAO person, you know, and often I have strong opinions, but they're not necessarily right or wrong. And it's really hard to say like, well, I mean, I don't know, but at the same time, I think this or I think that. So I think I often, especially in this expert, like when you're in a position of expertise or whatever, I often say I think but I don't say I don't know. You know, I will say I think it's like this. Who knows? You know? I also noticed that, man, it's like, I don't know if it's testosterone or what, but men generally suck at this compared to women. I hate to say it, but it's very true. It's just like, you know, and
I didn't want to mention that.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Claps.
Someone had to say it.
Yeah, it's just truth. Luckily, I'm not very PC. Gosh, I was reading articles and I swear, and every time I'm in an interview, it's horrible. But anyway, I don't know. Did that hit the topic well enough, Katie? Okay, cool. Good. I'm done with this one. Mitch, pass it to you.
Thanks, Griff. I think there's a really interesting part of having all of our meetings be online and public is that people can just join and ask you a question out of left field. And, you know, it's not necessarily somebody that's in the organization. So you're like, whoa, I didn't think about that at all. And like, I don't know, you know, and that wouldn't happen in like a regular workplace because everyone's kind of like looking down the same tunnel, I guess you could say. So that's something that I noticed. had another moment. Oh yeah, here we go. So another thing with public meetings or Discord meetings is people are multitasking. And I'm saying I don't know often because I'm actually not paying attention. I'm working on something else, you know. I'm like in there testing issues on some application, and somebody asked me a question, and I'm like, I don't know, sorry, you know. And maybe that's like a lack of focus thing, but those are two instances of I don't know that I feel like happen to me often. I'll pass it to Ryder. Have you gone?
Thanks, Mitch. I could just talk about this for hours, like with a small group, just like I want to say yarning, but that's not my word. Just like keep emerging discussion about this. Thank you. I want to say Suga. Because I've already seen some really excellent facilitation from you in this, and I appreciate that a lot. So I before the pandemic, I was a chiropractor, and it was in school, like it was a big issue. People didn't know how to say I don't know. It's like, you can't know everything about someone's body. We're learning templates for how bodies work, and then people have bones that aren't even discovered. Like people are growing and dissolving bones weekly. Like this is like the human body is constantly emerging. Web3 is a great example of that, you know, and like you don't know, you know. And then if you take like use cases like what Mitch was talking about, you know, people just like randomly showing up on your server and asking you questions, like you likely know more than them about your org, right? So like you can be like, well, and then it's like how you say it, like when Griff was like, I think, like that's actually so powerful in text form. Like because when I see people just say things like facts, like, well, this is how this works, and I know I know the context, I can't even respond. I get so frustrated. I don't know where to start with that person. I want to start with go decolonize your mind and then come back, you know, because they don't even know that they're doing it. And the fact that Griff said that was just like, that's square zero, you know, for like coming into things that you do know and being like real about it is like, just at least put I think before it. Like, it's just like, but yeah, I was talking about like, I'm a chiropractor, I have a doctorate, you know, that makes me an expert in like going to school, you know, and like learning a bunch of stuff, but not on like an individual's body. And so like, you know, like each of us, like Griff is not the expert on every DAO, but is like, you know, moving like this emerging like organizational technology forward. And we have to, like, we want to acknowledge that and we want to like consider opinions, but then it's even more powerful when someone says, I don't know, and then all these doors open for more things to emerge too, you know? I'm so full of energy and I could just go on forever. I have been really challenged in this space to say I don't know less, because otherwise I will be overlooked and people will just question why I'm even in a server or an organization. Like, yeah, we have, like, I might be the top of the leaderboard and I might be like, you know, part of like some, like a bunch of groups. But if I say I don't know, it's like, oh, that person actually isn't, like, do you even like work here? Like, so I'm like choosing my battles with that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
David, I don't know what that means, DYOR. So I don't know if I'm not following some instructions.
Is he there? David? Wait, where is he?
Cyber Rabbit?
I am
David.
here.
Where are you? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, sorry I was late. I popped in apparently after some sort of serious emotional bomb, and boy, did I come in a minute or three too late. So I'm not quite sure what is the very
Okay.
sensitive topic that was just being discussed. But
Oh,
one thing
wow.
do you want to give me a really quick synopsis? Like,
I like the idea that you were just about to jump in before I cut you off. If you want to just go for it. Or should I give you some context?
Based on the previous comment, I was going to make a comment that I don't think we should be allowed to say I have no distractions, or because if there's the option to say none, people take it, right? And intentions, distractions, none, no, move on. And no, you gotta have some because you're a human. And so if you don't have one, make one up and maybe it'll be close. That was going to be my only comment. And I hope I'm not intruding. I'm just here to listen to debate, not be in one. Hope that's okay.
Well, let me give you the question. So we didn't do intentions, distractions, but what we did here was in SoftGov an intro question. And today we're talking about intellectual humility and the ability to say, I don't know, in a professional setting. And there was a brilliant moment, actually, as you came on and Ryder passed you, and she said, I don't know what DYOR means. I thought that was perfect. So you have a moment there to do. We have a teaching moment if you want to take it. But otherwise, please share your thoughts on the importance of being able to say, I don't know, in a professional setting and how you feel about that.
Critical. The moment you think you stopped learning, you're done. You're on death's doorstep. One must always be open to learning, and that is what I don't know means. Is if I don't know, there's room maybe to know, and maybe there's a teacher out there that can help me know, or a group of teachers. And I've ranged into some really professional jobs too. Like I was an airline pilot for a while and federal investigator, and egos get big, and it's very hard when identities are combating effectively for one person to shrink and say, I don't know. That's hard. We're all playing with that ego management, right? That's the human process. So DYOR means do your own research. And I came across that acronym in this space and learned it here, and I just loved it. And a couple of times I failed to do that, and it bit me. And so it used to actually be like a full sentence, please do your own research or you might get scammed. And eventually I've been shrinking it smaller and smaller over the months until I'm satisfied that it's acceptable.
So you get to please, just please.
It's just a D, I'm D. So those are my thoughts. Oh, and you know what? It's true. On Discord meetings without visual, I mean, people are playing Xbox. They're changing their babies' diapers. It's for sure. But you can still pay attention a little bit audio. But it takes, it's hard to gauge engagement. And with that, I'll pass it to someone who has not gone. At least swirly lines. Who's that?
We've got Cyber Rabbit ready to go, I think. How's that?
Cyber Rabbit, go for it.
Hello, everybody, and hello. I really like the conversation, and I want to add that in Turkey, from where I come from, we say that not knowing is not an act of shame, but not willing to know, it's shameful. Like, you shouldn't be ashamed of not knowing, but you should be ashamed of not wanting to know. So I think that's the key thing. But I mean, in a world where we're living, the information age, it's like it's a choice not to know, because everything is available if you know how to do that research. Everything is just 2 words away from you how to, and just put whatever you want to learn on Google. But it's also true that like it's become a thing that like not knowing something in this new world, it's a shameful thing. Like people even say that they would say they know something even if they didn't know it. And if you say so, then I sometimes do it myself too. But like when I do that, I always like secretly just Google whatever it is, and then you get the quick information on it. At least you can like learn. I would love to continue today, but I just literally received another. I have another call, which it just been clashing. They're calling me now. But in my DAO experience in the past 3 years, I agree with you. We used to use Zoom, we used to use Google Meetups, and what I experienced is when people are meeting online, they tend to do multitasking. And and which I agreed with, Mitch, that like it's not super. I don't know. People should choose to be here and dedicate their time as if they're physically, and then not multitask, because multitasking is great, but it definitely cuts your focus into different things that you're doing. Okay, and I've joined the call a bit later, by the way. Who would like to speak so I can pass it on to
Nick.
There we go, Nick.
Nick? Yeah.
Sorry, there's music going on in the background where I am. To build on what Cyber Rabbit was saying, I think it's important to say if you don't know something as well, because in doing that, you're opening up the chance for you or other people to find out together. And I think that's great because you're all expanding together then. It can be difficult though, because you might think it affects your status within the organization if you say you don't know, especially if you're known as the knowledge expert on that in that area. But I don't know, I think there's always room to grow, so it's okay to say you don't know. I'll pass it on to Nate, Zoots, if they haven't gone yet.
Already went. I'm going to pass it back to Suga for the rest of the agenda.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. That was wonderful. Yeah, everybody spoke, and I also just wanted to add. Maybe we can do this another time. I'll speak to Livia, but I wanted to also talk about what seemed to come up as well, and I had in mind is the concept of imposter syndrome, because it's very related to this, like the fear that you think you don't know. But that's a whole other can of worms that we can visit another time. Actually, I saw a really fabulous article about it on Metagame that maybe what I can do is share that later for anybody who's interested. Meanwhile, so for today, in collaboration with Wonka and his suggestion, we thought we could talk about the various proposals that are on the table that deserve some advice process to think about before we get to the Commons upgrade, and just to hear some of your feedback on those. So Wonka, I don't know if you wanted to help start us off, if we should go in a particular order, or if anybody has a preference. I'm just looking at the weekly update that came out this weekend, and I don't know why they're in the order they are, but I put them in that order, so I must have seen them somewhere in that order. But we could also start with what we were talking about in the previous call, maybe being the easiest ones first or something like that, where we could move more quickly, or I'm not sure. In which case, we'd start with the last one, which is one-time change of the TECH addresses. So we can look at those. I'm not great with the screen sharing, so if anybody wants to put it up, I that would be helpful.
Sure. I also want to say there is a time constraint on all of them, but there is a time constraint for September 2nd on that one in particular. So maybe it would behoove us to lock down for that.
Absolutely, thank you.
And really the question is around how do we verify? So the idea is that for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, there are people who might have lost their address or want to change their address. And what we would do is burn TEC tokens and mint new TEC tokens. So burn the TEC tokens that exist in their old address that they will no longer have access to, and mint tokens into a new address. And the community raised just a point about how do we ensure that we are doing this legitimately. So the people who are the people whose tokens we're burning are actually the owners of the token addresses that we're minting to. And I guess it's a question of whether we do this by the people publicly asking for this address change. So maybe somebody would submit I, Tamara, was using this address and now I want to use this address, and sort of that way the whole community verifies. Or if we sort of consider their privacy and allow them to do that and have certain people in the TEC verify that it is indeed their address, but don't do it publicly. Personally, I'm for the we trust approach, and to give people the option to retain their privacy if they want to. But maybe we can pass to Nate, because you had some thoughts about the issue of transparency.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big issue. I do like the solution that Griff proposed in terms of having 3 or 4 trusted seed members to collectively verify and make sure that there's transparency around the burning of those wallets and minting of those wallets and keeping those identities private. To me, it's not more about the privacy of it, but I think it's kind of just making sure that the amount of wallets are the exact same, that there's no kind of transferring of funds or governance rights to other people that we don't know about or who are not associated with the trusted seed. So those are my only concerns, but I like the idea of kind of having a committee that's in charge of doing that.
Septimus and Griff, you also had some comments. Do you want to share your points?
I'll pass to Zep because my comments are on the post. I think a comment, yeah.
Yeah, I personally also think for this case it's better to, trust the curators. I mean, this whole time we were doing it this way and it was working, but at the same time, if you look into the future and maybe if someone wants to change their address when we don't know who it is, if it's not transparent, how do we know this guy is the right guy and he's not playing some games or whatever? Right now we know all the people and we are a very little, we're 200 hatchers, it's very little. But when we in the future, in future economies, we want these systems to be working by their own, and or at least it's how I see it. And but again, for this time, I think this is an easy solution. We can just solve this problem, and that's it. We solve it. But it's also good to look into the future sometimes. But I'll pass it to Griff.
And there's not 12 people. It's just a handful, right? A couple people.
I remember 3.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I will second Septimus's concerns. It's really going to be tricky. I mean, there's only one way to do it, which is a case-by-case basis. It's going to be very tricky for someone in the future to be I lost my wallet and, I just found my CryptoKitties from 2017 and I have no access to that wallet. And I'm oh, they're so cute. I could look at them on Etherscan and it's I'll never see them again. But and that happens to people, right? That's part of it. And I don't know how somebody a year from now would be able to verify that they had a wallet address. I guess they're registered a trusted seed, that they at least have that. But once the augmented bonding curve is live, that there's no longer really a way to verify identity. So those addresses those tokens would just be lost, and that's just the reality of it. But I think for this initial hatch phase, we should try to accommodate our hatchers as best we can, and part of that is sort of allowing them the privacy if they, I don't know that we even ask them if they want to do it publicly, but allowing them the privacy to have this burn and mint happen with some verification from TEC and Common Stack.
I just got back, so I don't know if I'm jumping stack, but I just wanted to offer myself as a timekeeper if it was needed. Because I'm less invested in the topics, but just interested in the process. So if that's needed, just let me know.
Yeah, great, thank you. I think we're okay for now, but possibly. Yeah, are there more comments, thoughts on that particular measure?
I just wanna know, like, would it be okay if I just post it like? I mean, it seems like there is cohesion on the, like, we do it private, so it would be okay if I just set up a snapshot and make it like how it's written in the post.
I think we would add the people that would be the verifiers before we add it to Snapshot.
But it's there, right? Like the team is there.
Maybe we can specify that like they're responsible for verifying that the
Okay.
token, that the addresses and identities match.
Mm-hmm.
I really just want to point out the great work on adding the 1,000 wrapped X die in order to cover the tollgate fee. I just really, I think that was a great move. So, but just some awareness that it will pull the wrapped X die. We have to choose which pool to pull it out of. So when we actually make the on-chain proposal, we should pull it out of the non-redeemable pool, because the 1,000 wrapped X die that you have to put in will go to the non-redeemable pool. So when we get to the technical aspect, there's actually two pools of money. And so I don't know, maybe it's worth saying that it's a technicality, but
Okay. Yeah, I'll write it.
I also just love that it's there, because that kind of negates the tollgate fee a little bit, right? If the proposal passes, then the person who puts it up gets it back.
And who's going to be like the responsible, like for checking the addresses? Do you want to do it, Grief, or should I?
Yeah, I mean, the people who have had these problems have reached out to me, but all three of us will do it. So I think the way that I would suggest is that, I talk to the person, they give me the address. Tam talks to the person, they give her the address. Dan talks to the person, they give him the address. And assuming we all got the same three addresses, we know we're good, right?
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Can I just
Okay.
maybe say, do we do it a different way since we know who they are because of trusted seed? Maybe we just can verify their address through who they are. Like we want to verify who they are more than the address, right? Like, is this your Twitter handle? Like, is this your email address? Is this your? I don't know actually who the people are, so I'm not really even sure. We might even just know who they are because we have met them in real life and know them
Honestly,
for years.
I forget who one of them is. I know I remember too. I know there's a third person. I can't remember who it is. So also that's the other thing, is that we might want to advertise, hey, does anyone want to switch their address before? And maybe it is 12 people, but like, hey, guess what? You just put real money in this. Do you want to like change your address? It's going to be locked there for a while.
Yeah, we did have some time. So until the 15th, we said we would accept requests for changes, but we didn't really promote it, that it's an option, unless you read the fine details of this.
And then there's on those dates, the Hatchdown vote will be, I think it's 4 days, 3 or 4 days. So the vote will need to be submitted with all the addresses. So there'll have to be the burning and minting of TCH would have to be at least 3 days after the vote. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 days, honestly. I'm sorry.
4.
4, thank you.
Okay, so if you are comfortable, we can move on to another topic. Ryder, thank you for offering the timer. Just to note, it may not necessarily be the case that we get to all 4. We can obviously try, but we know how these things go. And I also just have a quick question. Griff, is your computer like in the kitchen cupboard or?
Wow! Ding, 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 ding! Look at that.
Oh my God. Very practical. Very practical.
Standing desk.
It's right, exactly. Okay, so moving on. Well, in that case, Tam, do you know the delivery date of each one of these off the top of your head, or should I just we could just have a scroll? The reward system, that's a biggie. It just says 6 weeks optimistically. We have the governance give back 75% and the initial buy into the bonding curve. So maybe we can start with, if anybody has a particular one that they do want to talk about while we have the chance to talk about it today. Nate.
75%.
Yeah. I also want to talk about this proposal, and I find it super interesting because here I see that there are two topics, and one is the social aspect of the governance distribution, and the other one is the technical solution to implement that governance give back. So, like, I think that on the part of the governance, there is not so much debate because people feel that we can recognize with governance to these core contributors that were paid for during the cultural build. But I think that the spiky topic is the thing of the technical solutions, because we have two solutions, and like one is said to be like quicker, but it's like dirty, and the other one is like more detailed, and it's like the proper solution, but it needs like funding and it needs an additional time to develop. So like I think that maybe on this topic we need like further discussion on this topic, and also to know and if there are other technical solutions, or like how can we implement one or the other. And the replies on the post have been very interesting, and I think that's the main like spiky issue on how are we going to implement this, and if we can do it fast, or if it's better to like wait and maybe like deliver some funds to like helping to implement the solution that could be implemented and could be like long lasting, and like so my appreciation here is that maybe this could be like a two-phase vote, and like the technical solution can be selected or can be like proposed by the common swarm. But I also think that the community should like somehow like certify and agree with that solution, so that it's not like some technocracy taken solution that impacts everyone.
The tech, no matter what, because of the structure of the DAO, whatever technical solution is taken, the community would have to vote to approve it, basically. If people are against, like, honestly, I would assume so. On Thursday, I have a call with Brett. Brett is he built everything that we're using, right? So he was the lead technical developer for. He's the lead developer for Aragon, and so like, there's really no one better in the world. There's not a human better in the world. Period. Full stop. To review our bonding curve, right? And so he's going to check to see if he believes that one character, the quick and dirty change, the one character change that will allow us to make a parameter negative, will have any issues. Now, Sem has identified some risks with that I personally don't think are risks. We just have a disagreement on what the impact of the risks that we would be taking. Now, if Brett says it's cool, then we have a conversation. If Brett says it's not cool, then we don't have a conversation, right? So it's kind of like, if Brett says, "Oh yeah," not only because the risks that Sam identified are kind of like the DAO could vote to make this negative number really bad, and for me, the DAO could vote to take all the money out of the bonding curve and give it to charity, right? So like we can destroy the bonding curve in 20 different ways. So adding a 21st different way to me is like not a problem. But there could be problems in the math. And there are other problems that I identify in the post, like people will have money in their wallet that they can't get rid of, right? It'll look like that. But on the technical solution, I actually think it's sort of a waste of our time to talk about it in this call until we have the information from Brett. But that's the background on it, and our difference of opinion. And Sem and I are going to hug it out next in like a week and a half in person too. So because it's kind of a testy thing for ourselves because we just have a disagree on the risk level, but.
Can this only be done pre-bonding curve?
What?
Can this only be done pre-bonding curve implementation?
It could be done post, but it would be like Sem calls it heart surgery, right? Like if you want to like change the bonding curve after it's going, you have to stop the market, and that already is kind of weird. Probably secondary markets are going to go up or down compared to where the bonding curve is, and you could upgrade the bonding. You would upgrade the bonding curve, and then you would redeploy. Hope everything is tied together correctly. So it's not that it couldn't be done. Like the quick and dirty way just shouldn't be done after the hatch. Like it just shouldn't. But like the eventually, maybe a year from now, this quick and dirty solution wouldn't be a problem because I'm sure that this other technical solution will get implemented one day. But I'm curious about.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to hear if people think that we should be giving the people who were paid like that list tokens, like forgetting the technical solution. Just like, is that a good idea or not? Like, I'd love to hear if someone thinks it's a bad idea and that it's just simpler to go with what we have, or if it's a good idea.
I personally don't care.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mitch.
I was going to say, I can see the main concern is that the people who built the application from a development and cultural standpoint won't have a lot of governance influence because it was severely reduced because they were getting paid. So the question is, like, how big of a role do you think these people should play in governance? And I think they should have a huge role because they're the ones that have the knowledge and are going to probably be the most active participants. And this also means that because their tokens are severely reduced, that means the votes can more easily be bought out by new players.
I also agree with this proposal of returning governance rights, because I think that the main reason to discount those impact hours was to not double reward economically these people. But with this solution, we will not double reward economically, but we will recognize the governance that was deducted because of payment. So yeah, I personally agree with this.
I just want to say I think it's super cool that we'll be teasing out governance from a monetary token, right? And will be just as like a, if nothing else, just as a something that we can say to the world that we did is like, and a problem in the crypto space is that governance rights are so often tied to a monetary token, and to just be like, yeah, we recognize that and tease that out. I think that's super cool. And if we implement this solution, we could do that for other issues as well, right? Like I would love to see a solution where for other features further on where we can grant governance rights without giving people money. And I think that there's a plethora of opportunities for that. Having that feature would be valuable.
This is the second time that I've seen this proposal talked about. And I, first of all, love that it's not going through too quickly. But also, I would like to know if there's a resource where I can learn more about this spreadsheet that I see appear and don't try to take up the entire time having it explained to me. So if there is something that someone could pop in the SoftGov chat sometime today or something, or at me, of like documentation for how to understand this process better. And if there's not, I get it, it's cool. But like, yeah, and then I want to go on a huge tangent, which I won't, about how cred is our super underutilized like reputation currency at source cred. Like grain is our currency, but cred is just like a score, and how we're talking about making a non-transferable token. So not only can people have governance rights from something that they earn from contributions, it can't be bought by people to like increase their governance like rights and powers. But that's like just in the chatting with people in small group stage. What isn't that stage? But anyway, just I love this that I'm diving in with you guys at the same time y'all are like teasing that out. So.
The initial question came from this thread, which has almost 90 comments on it. It's a long read. I feel like you're gonna get more confused after reading it, so I might not even recommend it. But that's sort of where this proposal originated from.
You're not wrong. I'm really bad at long text form. Blah. Grad school kind of killed that part of my brain, but I still is this easy to find?
I just sent a forum post on the SoftGov channel. Yeah, that summarizes, written by Mitch, and it was because when we were doing the impact hour distribution, we made deductions to the people that were paid, and yeah, those deductions affected their TEC impact hour score, but then in that way we also took governance out of people. So this is a solution to return governance to the people that were deducted TEC from getting paid.
That was a very concise summary. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. How do I know who gets paid?
There in the TC spreadsheet, in the TC prices spreadsheet, there are a lot of pestañas, a lot of folders, but all the information is there.
Very cool. Thank you for your, for being transparent, y'all. I know you try really hard to do that. And then we still have to decipher each other's notes,
So essentially what we're saying is we should come back to this one.
One of our other... Sorry.
No, I think there's a lag. It may be me. So I'm bringing up this initial buy into the bonding curve one, which I thought there's actually just still a lot of room for exploration. We only have 4 minutes to continue this, actually, to have this discussion. But the idea here was that the TEC has an opportunity as a DAO to buy its own token within milliseconds after the bonding curve launches, which would mean that it would be the lowest price of the token that would be available for some period of time. The expectation is between the initialization of the bonding curve and then the thaw of the hatch tokens, which would enable hatchers to sell their tokens. So there would no longer be a sort of floor price secured, or like supported by the hatch tokens that exist. And so there are some different ideas for what we could use these funds for. I don't know how much conversation we can really have in 3 minutes, but there was some, I think a lot of support, it seemed, for this idea of using it for the reward DAO. Although there was also some pushback about whether we should not use those tokens, but use what's in our pools already for rewards. There's also some thought about using it for partnerships with other DAOs. So it'd be sort of, we would be able to offer other DAOs TEC token at a favorable price, and they would offer us their tokens from their DAO. Another idea was to offer a favorable price, I'm calling it, token to some strategic ventures. So organizations or people that would be interested in participating in the TEC and would be strategic for us to have their support and or expertise or efforts or what have you. Another idea was liquidity in second markets. So there's a lot of things that we would be able to use these favorably priced tokens for. And what we kind of need is there to be some champions for these causes to submit proposals that would sort of specify exactly how many and how we would want to use those tokens. So how many we would want and what we would use them for. And I'm going to just open the floor to anyone who wants to jump in. For 2 minutes, we don't really have time to go around.
I'd love to champion the DAO to DAO partnerships.
Who specifically?
I was thinking people like Gitcoin and just kind of infrastructure, public token engineering projects. Radical things like that. I don't know. It's still in the air, but there'd need to be a framework to follow. But I do think it's a really cool idea, just to diversify our treasury a little bit.
So yeah, I noticed that proposal, and so we're putting their governance tokens in our treasury, and then what do? Do we use them for governance, or is the intention to sell them later? Because if you're holding them, either you're going to use them to govern or you're speculating on it.
Yeah, I agree with Mitch on that one. I think there needs to be a clear, intention behind it. But I do think that if we're going to have strategic partners, I think it'd be really interesting to. I mean, it's going to be a combination of both, but yeah.
If we're going to hold, I would expect us to have a sub DAO, like a service DAO, to hold tokens. The DAO itself is very inefficient at holding other currencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then how are you going to, if you choose to go the governance route, how are you going to collectively use these tokens to make decisions in someone else's DAO?
On that one, I think it depends on the DAO, and I would say that you'd want to have for instance, for Gitcoin, you should just delegate to me. I'm the best steward out there. But for other DAOs, there's other kinds of solutions that you might have to take an active participant. Like for instance, Tam is like Common Stack's Prime DAO representative and has to check in with them every 2 weeks. So things like that. I think it's going to be DAO by DAO basis.
Top of the hour, so I think we got to call it quits for now. We can take this up again, hopefully. But until then, thank you all for coming, and have a good day, have a good night, and see you soon.